It begins with screaming and blood. A house by the sea, somewhere in Norway. Inside, the screaming of one becomes the screaming of two. The baby is a boy. They wrap him in soft wool. His parents are no one special. No skald will sing of his deeds, and history will not remember his name. His family are not lords or warriors. Yet he, and people like him, will spread Scandinavian influence from Constantinople to Western lands unseen by Europeans. For this village prizes one skill above all others. The father takes his newborn son and lays him in a crib shaped like a boat. Between the 8th and the 10th centuries, a startling event occurred in Northern Europe. Throughout the whole of Scandinavia, men and women took to the seas with the intention to raid, settle, and trade with new lands. Within 3 centuries, they would trade goods in Constantinople, build the city of Dublin, establish a dynasty in France, found a kingdom in England, and give Russia its name. And famously, this Viking expansion would culminate in a series of voyages that left settlements on Iceland, Greenland, and briefly North America. Medieval Scandinavians achieved this through superior technology, flexible tactics, and business savvy. But surprisingly, also without central leadership or even a common vision. Instead, it was a distributed effort where groups of adventurers struck out into Europe's waterways in search of profit, power, and fame. And in this series, we'll chart the most successful of those efforts and how they changed the face of Europe. But before we get to that, let's take a look at Scandinavian society. Specifically, what motivated medieval Scandinavians to take to the waves? And once they did, why were they so successful? That question of motivation is actually tough to answer. One school of thought holds that overpopulation or climate change led to resource scarcity and food shortages, causing Scandinavians to seek out new lands, or at least wealth to buy land back home. Others say the consolidation of political power in Scandinavian society, basically the rise of powerful kings, created a class of displaced warrior nobles looking to recapture wealth and status. Still others point out that by the 8th century, Europe had finally begun to recover from the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. Complex trade and monetary systems were on the rise, meaning that after centuries of existing via the barter system, people in Europe finally had goods that were, well, actually worth stealing. Moreover, these new luxury goods were portable. After all, Vikings weren't going to cross the North Sea and sack an English port just to steal all of its cows. Silver and precious stones, though, those were easy things to loot. But in all likelihood, there was no single event that drove the Viking expansion. The evidence points to a combination of factors that convinced Scandinavians to strike out with the sail and the sword. As to why they were so successful, for that, let's go back to the same house we visited earlier. The child who lay in the boat-shaped crib is now 13 and getting ready to accompany his father to sea. His is a nautical family. The house he grew up in, indeed, every house in the village, is shaped like an upturned ship. They live on the coast of Norway, with the North Sea on one side and a great ridge of mountains known as the Keel on the other. As a boy, he learned to sail small craft in the sheltered fjords, fishing and ferrying passengers. But this will be his first time sailing to foreign lands. He is well prepared. Years of helping his mother handle farming and livestock have made him strong, and village leisure activities have reinforced the importance of physical fitness. He spends his summers in wrestling contests, mock sword fights, boxing, and foot races. Unusually for a medieval European, he can swim for several miles. In the depths of winter, he spends his time playing music, listening to and reciting poetry, matching wits over board games, and drinking vast quantities of mead. This isn't all fun and games, though. These games, songs, and tales weigh nothing. Cultural comforts that can be carried across the world while taking up no cargo space. And, under his boat-roofed hall, heavy with snow, he learned how to exist in a small space with other men for months at a time without descending into violence. When the village needs to build or repair a boat, he assists the craftsmen, selecting green wood and learning how to cut with the grain to give the timber strength. Boatyard elders work him until he memorized each angle and spar of the clinker-style construction, forming mental blueprints of the craft. Now, if he and his crew are wrecked on a foreign shore, they can build a new boat from memory. But now his training is over. He and his father set off in their vessel, armed not with swords, but with furs, honey, and walrus ivory. They are not Vikings. In fact, very few Scandinavians were. And Viking is actually a verb. To go on a raid is to go Viking. And a person who goes Viking is a Vikinger. But the boy and his father are not Vikingers. And their ship is not one of the famous longships. They sail a kanar, a trading vessel that is shorter and wider than its warlike cousin. It has decks and a hold that can carry 30 to 40 tons, but a draft of only 5 feet, meaning it can navigate even shallow rivers. Its keel keeps it steady during the crossing to the British Isles, and as it navigates its first storm, the boy no longer has to wonder why skaldic poems refer to ships as serpents. The flexible hull twists in the rough water, bending where other ships would break. The navigator shows the boy how to orient himself on the open sea, how to chart by the stars and look for telltale signs of land in cloud formations and passing birds. They count oar strokes to determine their speed. They average around 5 knots. Respectable, but under optimum conditions, the thinner, flat-bottomed longships can make 3 times that speed. They pull into the long port at their destination, the Kingdom of Dublin, a trade city founded by Norwegian Vikingers. There, standing on deck, the boy sees foreign people for the first time. They're dark-haired and dark-eyed men and women, standing on the shore, chained together with iron manacles. Irish slaves. The boy learns to barter fur and ivory for human beings, and sets off on the next leg of the journey. These Irish will fetch a good price at the Emirate of Cordoba, Muslim Spain, where merchants offer silver coin from the Middle East in exchange for human cargo. Usually, traders only handle one leg of the trade, but the boy's father is savvy. Alongside silver in the Arab territories, they barter for pottery and glass in what is now Germany, and silver jewelry with the Franks. In the Mediterranean, they buy spices and Persian leather. Their shallow draft ship can navigate most major rivers in Europe, and most major cities are built on rivers. And at times, they meet up with the great longships, the Vikingers. The first time, the boy fears the fierce captain with his iron helmet and sword. But he soon learns that fellow Scandinavians are also open to trade. Sometimes, his father swaps supplies for looted items. And at other times, he takes silver in exchange for intelligence about the lands they've just visited. Were there guards at the port? A monastery? Did they sight any army camps or cavalry along the shore? At other times, they give fellow Scandinavians a wide berth. Not everyone can be trusted. Over the years, the boy learns that people in trading ports consider all Scandinavians the same. The Irish call them the dark and fair foreigners, and the Franks refer to them as Northmen. Though their crews hail from Norway, the English see no distinction and refer to all Scandinavians as Danes. But the Scandinavians themselves see a great deal of difference. The Norwegians and Danes often feud. After all, geography often shapes culture, and there's little similarity between mountainous Norway and the flat riverlands of Denmark. The Swedes largely control trade into the waterways of Eastern Europe and dislike others encroaching on their territory. At times, a great leader might unite a coalition of warbands from different places, but it was tempting fate for a Norwegian trader to pull up alongside an unfamiliar Danish longship. In time, the boy became a man. He learned his father's trade well and married. He too would lay his sons in a boat-shaped crib and take them to sea, teaching them to barter in the trading ports, and once even taking them on a risky venture to the lavish markets of Constantinople. The man was not rich. Though full of profit, a lifetime of trading on the sea also exposes a family to loss. Storms, bad investments, And raids by fellow Scandinavians blunted his fortune. Long voyages make for rocky marriages, and after 20 years, his wife declared divorce, claiming half his property. He accepted this and remarried. His former wife had, after all, followed the law. When he died, he could not be buried in the lavish style of the wealthy lords. Instead, his sons dug him a simple grave and filled it with his favorite possessions. And to mark the spot, to honor the man who had crossed the ocean and exchanged goods across the world, they laid him to rest inside a ring of stones. A ring shaped like a boat.